The rain had already soaked through Ava Reed's coat by the time she reached the courthouse steps. New York felt unusually cold for late September. Cold enough that the wind stung her cheeks. Cold enough that the truth hurt even more. Because today wasn't about justice. Today was about sacrifice. Her sacrifice. Inside, the hallway echoed with the same sterile, soulless chill she felt in her bones. Connor Hale, the family attorney, stood waiting with a manila folder tucked under his arm. He didn't meet her eyes. He didn't have to. She already knew what he'd say. Ava, we don't have time. Of course they didn't. People like her family never had time. They only had debts. Debt that strangled. Debt that consumed. Debt that now demanded something far more valuable than money. Her. She swallowed hard as he opened the folder. The contract lay inside. Thick, multi-paged, printed in sharp, merciless black. And at the bottom, the signature of the man the world only dared whisper about. Marcus Kane, the Iron Tycoon. A man whose empire stretched from Wall Street to Washington. A man rumored to destroy entire companies with a single phone call. A man she would be legally bound to by sundown. Her father arrived moments later. Daniel Reed looked 10 years older than he had last month. Stress had carved him hollow. His eyes were bloodshot, his hands trembling. But even so, he didn't hug her. Didn't say sorry. Didn't say thank you. He simply whispered, "It's the only way." Ava could have screamed. Could have run. Could have thrown that folder across the hallway and demanded they face their own consequences. But the truth was sharper than her anger. Without this marriage, her family would lose everything. House, business, stability. And she couldn't bear the thought of her little sister paying for mistakes she never made. So she asked the only question that mattered. Why me? Her father shut his eyes. Because Marcus demanded it. A chill spread down her spine. Marcus Kane didn't demand things. Marcus Kane seized them. Why her? Why a woman he'd never met? Why the daughter of a family drowning in debt? Connor shifted uncomfortably. He says he wants a contractual companion. No romance. No obligations beyond appearances. And in exchange, your family's debts are cleared. Ava almost laughed at the absurdity. A companion? For a man rumored to fire employees for breathing too loudly near him? No. Marcus Kane didn't need a companion. He needed control. And somehow, she fit an equation she didn't understand. But her father's voice broke something in her. Ava, please. She inhaled. Deep and steady. She would sign. Not because they asked. Not because she was cornered. But because she refused to let her sister's future drown under their father's failures. Fine, she whispered. Give me the pen. The moment the pen touched the paper, her hand trembled. Not from fear, but from fury. Fury at fate. Fury at a man she'd never met. Fury at a system where women like her became currency. Her signature landed sharply, decisively. The deed was done. Connor exhaled with relief, already gathering the paperwork as if afraid she'd change her mind. Marcus's driver will arrive in 20 minutes. So soon. Of course. Predators liked efficiency. Ava straightened her shoulders. No matter what awaited her, she would walk into it with dignity. She refused to play the victim in someone else's empire. Outside, the rain had stopped. Steam rose from the streets under the afternoon sun, turning the city into a quiet battlefield of light and shadow. A sleek black SUV pulled up. The back door opened. A man stepped out. Not Marcus, but a driver in a charcoal suit. Miss Reed, Mr. Kane is expecting you. Expecting her. As if she were a package. A delivery. A transaction. Ava lifted her chin. Then let's go. As the SUV doors closed around her, she cast one last glance at the courthouse. One last moment of freedom. One last breath before stepping into the unknown. And somewhere, across Manhattan, in a penthouse carved from steel and glass, the most feared tycoon in America was preparing for her arrival. If this story moves you, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. Your support is what keeps this channel alive. Ava closed her eyes and braced herself. Because the real story, the dangerous one, was only beginning. The SUV moved like a shadow across Manhattan, slipping through traffic as if every light turned green just for Marcus Kane. Ava sat in the back seat, hands clasped together, staring out at the skyscrapers slicing the sky. Her heart beat in a staccato rhythm she couldn't calm. The driver, composed and silent, spoke only once. We'll arrive shortly, Miss Reed. Shortly. as if she were heading to a meeting, not to the man who now owned her future. The city thinned, buildings giving way to private roads and manicured greenery until the SUV slowed in front of a towering structure carved of glass and black steel. The Kane residence. No, Kane Fortress was more accurate. Ava stepped out. The air was crisp, quiet, unnervingly still. A massive security gate shut behind her with a heavy metallic thud that made her flinch. The front doors opened. A woman stood waiting, elegant, composed, early 50s, with a presence that felt like velvet and steel combined. "I'm Eleanor," she said with a gentle bow of the head. "Housekeeper to Mr. Kane. Welcome, Miss Reed." At least someone sounded human here. Eleanor led Ava through the foyer. Everything glowed with polished marble, cold color palettes. Walls that seemed too perfect. No family photos. No warmth. No life. "This way," Eleanor said softly. As they climbed the stairs, Ava noticed her reflection in the mirrored wall. Gentle eyes, damp hair, the expression of a woman trying not to crumble. She straightened unconsciously. Eleanor opened double doors to a suite larger than the apartment Ava grew up in. A king bed, a glass balcony overlooking the city, a walk-in closet already filled with clothes in her size. "This is," Ava swallowed. "A lot. Mr. Kane believes in preparation," Eleanor replied. "He also requested that you rest. He will see you at dinner." "He requested," Ava muttered, unable to hide the sarcasm. But Eleanor only gave her a knowing look. "Miss Reed, you are not the first person to arrive here feeling unprepared. But I assure you, nothing is ever quite what it seems in this home." Before Ava could ask what that meant, a quiet chime sounded. The lights dimmed slightly. "A signal. He's home," Eleanor whispered. Heavy, steady footsteps echoed from downstairs, footsteps that belonged to someone who commanded entire industries. Ava felt her pulse spiral. She didn't want to meet him like this, drenched from rain, tense, exhausted. She needed a moment. But the door to her suite opened before she could breathe. He stood there. Marcus Kane. Tall. Controlled. Dressed in charcoal black with a presence so sharp it cut the air around him. His eyes pinned her instantly. Eyes colder than the building they lived in. "Ava Reed," he said. Her name sounded like a verdict on his tongue. "So you signed." "I did." "You understood the terms?" "I understood enough." He stepped closer. His presence filled the room like a storm cloud. "This marriage is a contract. Purely strategic. If you follow the rules, your family's debts are cleared. If you don't, the deal ends, and so does their safety." Ava's jaw clenched. "You don't need to intimidate me, Mr. Kane. I already know what you bought." Marcus studied her for a long moment. Long enough that Ava wondered if he was reading her like an equation. Finally, he said, "Dinner is at 7. Don't be late." He turned and left. The door shut softly, but the impact echoed like a slammed gate. Ava sank into the edge of the bed, pressing a hand to her chest. So that was Marcus Kane. Not a monster, not a charmer. Something far more dangerous. A man who believed control was the only language worth speaking. And now she would have to learn how to survive inside his world. Dinner was held in a room so vast it felt like a museum gallery. A long dark wood table stretched between them, candles lit with precision at perfect intervals. Ava sat at one end, Marcus at the other, two silhouettes trapped in a frozen tableau. A server poured wine for her. Ava waved it away. "Just water, please." Marcus glanced up. "You don't drink." "I choose not to, especially on the first night in a stranger's home." His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Annoyance, maybe curiosity. "You're not a prisoner," he said. "Could have fooled me." Silence tightened like a taut rope between them. He finally set down his silverware. "Tell me something, Ava. Why sign so quickly? Most people beg for extensions, plea deals, alternatives." She met his gaze evenly. "Because survival requires decisiveness." Marcus leaned back slightly, studying her as though she unexpectedly passed a test. "Good. You'll need that here." "Why?" she challenged. "Because you intend to break me?" Something dark shifted behind his eyes, something she couldn't yet decipher. "I don't break people," he said quietly. "Life does that well enough." Before she could respond, the dining room lights dimmed again, soft, almost rhythmic. Ava frowned. Eleanor appeared instantly, whispering in Marcus's ear. Whatever she said, Ava saw the change. Marcus's jaw tightened, his brow furrowed, a shadow crossing his features. He rose. Ava, stay in your room tonight. Do not leave the upper floor. What's happening? Nothing you need to worry about. That sounds like something I should worry about. His eyes hardened. Not malicious, protective? No. She dismissed the thought. Do not leave the room, he repeated. He left the dining hall with Eleanor close behind. Ava felt a tremor of unease ripple through her. Something was wrong here. Very wrong. But she didn't yet know how deep the darkness in Marcus Kane's world truly ran. When she returned to her suite, she stood on the balcony overlooking the city. The air was cool. The skyline glittered. But down below, near the gates, she saw black cars arriving. Men in suits. The kind that didn't smile. Whatever this contract marriage was, it wasn't just business. It was danger. And she was now inside it. As she stepped back into her room, she noticed something resting on her nightstand. A small velvet box. Her breath hitched. Inside, a simple silver bracelet. No note. No instructions. Just the quiet weight of a mystery she wasn't prepared for. A gift? A symbol? A warning? She didn't know yet. But she knew one thing with absolute clarity. Marcus Kane was not just feared. He was haunted. And the shadows that followed him were now circling her too. Ava didn't sleep that night. Something in the mansion felt restless. The hall lights flickered occasionally, the distant hum of voices buzzed through the ventilation shafts, and the city's glow seeped into her room like a reminder that the world kept moving while she was trapped in place. She found herself wandering at 2 a.m., unable to quiet the storm inside her. The corridor outside her suite was dimly lit. Soft amber sconces cast long shadows that danced with each quiet step she took. She wasn't trying to break the rules. She just needed air. She followed the faint sound of something unexpected. Music. Not just any music. A piano. Haunting. Beautiful. Broken. Filled with a longing she recognized in her own bones. The melody pulled her like gravity down the hall, past the study, through an archway she hadn't noticed earlier. She peeked inside. Marcus sat alone at a grand ebony piano, illuminated by a single overhead light. His sleeves were rolled, his tie discarded, his posture slouched in a way she had never seen. He wasn't the tycoon right now. He wasn't the cold negotiator. He was a man carrying a weight that refused to be set down. The music stopped abruptly. Are you going to stare all night? Marcus said, voice steady but low. Or come in. Ava flushed but stepped forward. I didn't know you played. Most people don't. It's beautiful, she whispered. He exhaled a sharp breath. Beauty is overrated. Not when it reveals the truth. His eyes snapped to hers, and for a moment, vulnerability cracked his armor. Truth is dangerous, Ava. So is silence. A muscle in his jaw tightened. You shouldn't be walking around. You didn't exactly explain why. I don't explain myself. Well, she said softly, maybe that's why you're alone in a house full of people who fear you. The silence that followed felt like freefall. Then Marcus closed the piano lid gently. You need rest. So do you. He ignored that. As she turned to leave, his voice stopped her. Ava. She paused. The bracelet, he said. Wear it tomorrow. Because you said so? Because it keeps you safe. A chill laced her spine. Safe from what? He didn't answer. He simply watched her with eyes that carried too many ghosts. Ava returned to her room shaken, not by fear, but by the truth she had glimpsed in him, and the truth inside herself. Because Marcus Kane wasn't cold. He was wounded, and wounded men build walls higher than any empire. The next morning came like a slap of daylight. Ava woke abruptly to the sound of glass shattering somewhere downstairs. Adrenaline flooded her system. She threw on a cardigan and rushed down the hall, ignoring the pounding in her chest. She reached the mezzanine railing just as two staff members scrambled to pick up a fallen decorative mirror that had shattered across the marble. Eleanor looked pale. Marcus, standing nearby, looked furious. What happened? Ava asked. Marcus didn't want her there. She could see it instantly. His shoulders stiffened, his posture sharpened, and the room's temperature seemed to drop. It was an accident, he said. Her eyes flicked between his rigid jaw, Eleanor's trembling hands, and the mirror that hadn't simply fallen, but had been ripped from the wall. That wasn't an accident, Ava said quietly. Marcus shot her a warning look. Go upstairs. No, the word came out before she could stop it. For a heartbeat, everything went still. Ava stepped closer. This has something to do with last night, doesn't it? With those men who came. Marcus didn't blink, didn't breathe. didn't deny it. She took another step toward him. I'm not fragile. If I'm in danger, if someone is threatening us, I deserve to know. Us? He echoed, voice low. Heat rose to her face. You know what I mean. He was silent for a long moment. Too long. Then he turned away abruptly. I said go. But Ava wasn't raised to obey tyrants. She wasn't raised to stand small. No, she repeated. Not until you stop pretending I'm cargo. Not until you stop treating this marriage like a transaction. Marcus turned back slowly. His eyes were a storm. You want the truth? He asked. Fine. Someone broke in last night. They weren't after the house. They were after me. Ava's breath caught. And the bracelet? She whispered. A tracker, he answered. If you go missing, I'll find you. She stared at him, stunned, horrified, confused. You think someone will try to use me against you? I don't think, Marcus said. I know. This man lived in a world of threats and enemies. And he had pulled her into it. Before she could speak, another tremor ran through the floor, the building's security system powering up, a low hum vibrating in the walls. Marcus stepped closer, close enough that she could smell the faint cedar in his suit, close enough that the storm in him radiated like heat. I can protect you, he said quietly. But only if you listen. Her pulse thudded. And if I don't, she whispered. His reply was a warning and a confession all at once. Then I'm going to lose more than just control. The words lodged in her chest. This wasn't strategy, or dominance, or revenge. This was fear. Fear for her. And that realization frightened her more than any intruder ever could. The attack came without warning. One moment, Ava was walking through the underground parking level with her tote bag slung over her shoulder. Eleanor had asked her to retrieve a package Marcus had forgotten. A simple errand. The next moment, a hand clamped over her mouth. Ava tried to scream, but it came out muffled. She struggled, kicking wildly, claws scraping against the concrete floor as she fought the masked man dragging her toward a black van parked near the exit ramp. Panic shot through her like electricity. Her mind raced. Her bracelet. Marcus said it was a tracker. She slammed her wrist against the wall. The device blinked sharply. Let me go, she managed to gasp. The man didn't. Marcus Kane doesn't deserve you, the attacker growled. He deserves to lose something for once. Ava's blood turned cold. She fought harder. Harder than she ever had. Her heel struck his shin, but he barely flinched. Then, a roar. A sound she had never heard from another human being. A sound that felt more like a predator ripping through the dark. Marcus. He came around the corner at full speed, sprinting toward them with terrifying force. She had never seen a man move like that. Let her go, he bellowed. The attacker cursed and yanked Ava harder. Pain shot through her shoulder. Marcus didn't slow. He collided with the man like a freight train, tearing him away from Ava. They hit the concrete in a violent tangle of fists and rage. The van peeled out, tires screeching as the second attacker inside panicked and fled without his partner. Marcus seized the masked man by the collar, slamming him against the floor. You touch her again, Marcus growled, and you won't live to regret it. The attacker spat blood and hissed. You can't protect her forever. Marcus's punch silenced him. Ava pressed herself against the wall, trembling uncontrollably. Her lungs refused to work, her hands shaking so violently she felt like she might crumble. Marcus turned to her, and in that instant, all the fury vanished. He rushed to her side, cupping her face with trembling hands. Ava, look at me. Are you hurt? She couldn't speak, only nod. He pulled her into his chest, wrapping her in his arms with a gentleness so fierce it shattered her. You're safe, he whispered into her hair. I've got you. I swear I've got you. She felt his heart pounding against her cheek. Fast, wild, terrified. He wasn't afraid of danger. He was afraid of losing her. When her breathing finally steadied, he lifted her, careful, protective, and carried her back toward the elevators. As the doors closed, she whispered, Marcus, why are they targeting me? His voice was raw. Because they think you're the only way to hurt me. Her heart twisted. But why? Marcus didn't speak. Not until the elevator reached the penthouse. And then he answered, voice quiet, unguarded, painfully true. Because I feel something. For you that I shouldn't. The world stopped. Ava stopped. Everything stopped. Because for the first time, the iron tycoon had let a crack appear in the steel. Ava didn't know how long she sat on the edge of the massive leather sofa in Marcus's penthouse office. Her hands were wrapped in a blanket he'd draped around her, and a cup of untouched tea cooled beside her. Marcus stood by the window with his back turned, fists pressed against the glass, as if holding up the world. Finally, he spoke. "You shouldn't have been down there alone." She exhaled shakily. "I didn't know someone was trying to kidnap me." "They weren't just trying," he said, voice low. "They would have succeeded if I'd been 5 seconds later." She swallowed. "Who were they?" "People who want to see me fall. And they use me to do it." Silence. Heavy. Thick. Unavoidable. Ava rose and walked toward him. "Marcus, look at me." He did. And for the first time since she'd met him, she saw raw fear in his eyes. "Why does it matter to you?" she asked softly. "I'm just part of a contract." He stepped closer, his chest rising and falling unevenly. "You're not just anything. Not anymore." Her heartbeat stuttered. "I tried to push you away," Marcus said. "I tried to keep you in the margins so I wouldn't feel this. But when I saw him take you," his voice cracked. Ava covered his hand with hers. "Marcus, what are you feeling?" He closed the space between them. A losing battle. She felt breathless, then stopped fighting. He stared at her, eyes fierce and vulnerable. "If I stop, I won't be able to go back." "Maybe you're not supposed to." His forehead touched hers. Their breaths mingled. The air around them tightened like a pulled string, seconds from snapping. But then Marcus pulled back abruptly, running a trembling hand over his face. "I can't," he whispered. "Not when you're in danger because of me." Ava stepped forward. "And what about me? You think I'm safer without knowing what we are?" He didn't move. "You saved my life," she said. "Let me save yours in return." His eyes softened with something deep, something he wasn't ready to name. But he didn't walk away this time. And she didn't push him. They simply stood there, two broken pieces finally beginning to fit. Morning. Sunlight filtered into the bedroom like a hesitant visitor. Ava sat at the small breakfast table by the balcony, watching the city breathe beneath her. She'd barely slept, replaying every look, every breath, every word Marcus had spoken. He entered quietly. For once, he wasn't in a suit, just a black shirt, sleeves pushed up, hair slightly mussed. Human. Real. "May I sit?" he asked. "You live here," she replied gently. "You don't need permission." He sat across from her. A long silence stretched. "I owe you an apology," Marcus finally said, "for bringing you into my world without giving you a choice." Ava shook her head. "I signed the contract." "You signed out of desperation. That's not a choice." He looked down at his hands. "I've spent years punishing myself for things that weren't my fault. But punishing you, that was my fault." Her breath caught. "Marcus," he met her eyes. "I want this marriage to stop being a cage for you." "Then what do you want it to be?" He took a long breath. "A beginning." Her heart fluttered. "I redecorated the solarium," he added quietly. "Eleanor said you love plants. I thought, maybe it could be your space here." Her eyes widened. "You did that for me. I needed you to know I'm trying." A warm, fragile smile touched her lips. "Thank you." He hesitated. "Can I show you?" They walked down the hallway together. The solarium doors opened to reveal a bright, airy room filled with greenery, sunlight, plush seating, warm colors, the opposite of the cold mansion. A sanctuary. A home. Ava covered her mouth, tears threatening. "Marcus, this is beautiful." His voice softened. "I wanted you to have something that's yours. Something untouched by the past." She turned and hugged him. Without thinking, without fear. He froze for a heartbeat. Then he wrapped his arms around her slowly, pulling her closer, his chin brushing the top of her head. For the first time, he held her like she wasn't part of a contract, but part of his life. Maybe even part of him. And the mansion, once a fortress, felt warm for the first time. The confrontation came 3 days later. Ava found Marcus in his private office, staring at her father's file. The ledger. The debt agreement. The contract that had shackled her fate. "Marcus," she asked softly. He closed the folder. "I've made a decision." Her pulse quickened. "About what?" "About everything." He stood and walked toward her, holding the contract that had defined their lives. "This ends today." She blinked. "What do you mean?" He placed the papers on the table. "Your family's debt is cleared. Completely." Her breath hitched. "But, Marcus, that was the only leverage you had over my father." "I don't want leverage," he said, stepping closer. "I want freedom. Your freedom." The words pierced her. "I'm terminating the original marriage contract," he continued. "You're no longer bound to stay. You're free to walk out that door and never look back." Her throat tightened painfully. Is that what you want? He cupped her face with gentle hands. No, but I will never take your choice again. Tears welled in her eyes. I want you, Ava, he said. Not because of a transaction, not because of revenge, but because somewhere between the cold and the chaos, you became the only thing in my life that feels alive. A tear slipped down her cheek. And if you choose me, he whispered, voice shaking slightly, I want to marry you again. Without contracts. Without fear. Just us. Ava covered his hands with hers. Marcus, I choose you. Relief broke across his face like sunrise. He leaned forward, pressing his forehead to hers. Then let me give you something real. He took her hand, guiding her outside to the garden terrace where soft lights glowed along stone paths. A small table waited, with 2 rings resting in velvet boxes. No crowd. No signatures. Just a man and a woman choosing each other freely. Marcus knelt. Ava Reed, will you be my wife? By your choice, not mine. Ava smiled through tears. Yes. 1,000 times yes. He slid the ring onto her finger. She pulled him up into a kiss warm as dawn, soft as forgiveness, deep as rebirth. For the first time, Marcus Kane wasn't feared. He was loved. And Ava, no longer trapped, no longer bargaining with destiny, found a home in the last place she expected, the heart of the man who once terrified America. 2 broken souls, finally whole. 2 strangers by contract, now partners by choice. A new beginning. A real one.